Welcome to Golf and the Good Life, your guide to golf travel across the pond. I'm DJ Jones, joined by my friend and colleague Connor Evers. Connor, it has been a minute. You and I were on a little break, even though our episodes kept rolling out as scheduled. We've had a little break between the two of us. Would love to hear what is new on your end of things.
DJ, it's great to chat with you too, and looking forward to today's episode. But yeah, everything's been great. A lot of the marquee courses that we have talked about have either opened up, and a lot of their books are already full for next year for 2024, or some of those other marquee courses that are currently opening or have opened. So things are going well for next year for 2024. And when this episode comes out, it's going to be early June. I cannot believe that already. First groups were leaving the first part of April. So we're a few months already into the travel season for 2023. It oddly doesn't feel like that, but we are. But everything's been great. Groups are enjoying themselves. And as we talked about, weather's been pretty decent. But you would know better, DJ. You were just across the pond a couple of weeks ago. But if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about your experience and where you were all at.
Yeah, so my parents and I, we took a trip to Dublin, Edinburgh, and capped it off in St. Andrews. Just obviously an awesome trip all around. It was something we had only been talking about for a decade, and finally made it happen. Got to take them to some of my favorite places around all three of those cities, but more importantly, got to cap the experience with my dad at the old course, which you know, as golfers, we always talk about crossing the Swilken Bridge with dad, and in this case, mom and dad. Mom walked along with us, and to say that it was a special experience would be the understatement of all understatements. But like you said, weather was great. I had just a little bit of rain in Dublin, but none everywhere else, and especially on the day at the old course, which came in handy. But it's St. Andrews in the summer. It's hard to beat no matter who you're with. But in this case, extra special. But one thing I did want to say, if you are headed to St. Andrews this year, and you and I have talked about this before on the podcast, if your plan is to get in the singles queue to try to play the old course, may the force be with you. Because when my dad and I rolled up at 10 after 6 that morning, I bet there were 75 people in line, or not in line, but inside the old pavilion who had been in line. And I stopped a lady she was walking away carrying pillows and a duvet, and I asked her how they did, and she said, "Well, we got in line last night while the soccer game was still on," which I did the math on that, and that was like 9:30, and they were second in line, and he got a tee time. I think she said he was playing around 3 o'clock that day. Long story short is, if you're doing the singles queue, whatever time you're planning to get there, you better subtract about 4 hours from it if you wanna have any kinda shot. But, today, we could talk about St. Andrews all day, but that's not why we're here. Today, we are here to talk about Southwest Ireland. The Southwest is, for the longest time, it has been, when someone said they're playing golf in Ireland, that's more or less what they meant. Northern Ireland hadn't quite hit the radar for many Americans, years ago. And so, the concentration of links courses down in the Southwest meant that if you were playing in Ireland, you were coming here. And so for that reason, it is still one of the marquee destinations overseas. We are going to break it into two episodes. And the reason being is there is so much great golf in this region. I mean, there are several top 100 courses. If you take all of those, plus the courses that you probably should play while you're in the area, you can easily get up to 8 or 10 courses without breaking a sweat. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to start, if you're looking at the map, we are going to work our way from north to south. So Connor, why don't you lead us off with a visit to Doonbeg?
Yes, absolutely, DJ. Appreciate the intro there. And to your point, yes, the golf is fantastic in this region. We're going to start with Doonbeg. So the golf course is actually called Trump International Golf Links in Ireland. And the golf course was originally designed by Greg Norman. And unfortunately, there was some extensive damage from a storm, and the course changed a little bit, and it changed ownership as well. And it was redesigned by Martin Hawtrey. So a couple different designers to the golf course, but golf course is great. So as we're talking about for Lahinch and Adare, I lived in this region for about 6 months, and Doonbeg was actually the first links golf course experience that I've ever had. So it does have a little bit of a special place in my heart, just because first time I've experienced it. But I did go out there and play with one of my coworkers, Ronan. So shout out to him. But Ronan and I went out and played, and it was a great afternoon. We played. There was barely anyone on the golf course. The course is great. I mean, it's more of a modern links golf course, so it's not going to have that, old historical basis like you'll have like Lahinch, which DJ is going to talk about next. It's one where I would recommend either playing, on a rival day golf or something of the sorts of one of your first rounds of golf. It just kind of gets you into that feel of links golf. Relatively pretty flat. I mean, there's a couple dunes everywhere around the greens, obviously, especially in this area. But relatively speaking, especially comparatively to Lahinch, a little bit flatter. The par threes are great, and specifically hole number 14, I think, is my favorite golf hole on that course. It's a traditional 9 out and 9 coming back to the clubhouse, and the 14th it kind of cuts back into the beach in a sense, and you've got a really great picture of the clubhouse and lodges and different accommodations at Doonbeg, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But 14th is great. It's like, I would call it somewhere between 140 and 160 yards. I think I hit eight iron there, and it's downhill. You just got a great, pretty much picturesque view to your right of the ocean, again, back to the clubhouse. So 18 is, I'll be honest, it's one of my favorite finishing holes in all of Ireland. I mean, the clubhouse is just to your left. There's some areas, if you're eating dinner upstairs, you can actually look down and see the 18th hole as well as the first tee, but specifically the first hole there, and also the first hole. The first hole is great. It's par 5, pretty much straight out, and it's a birdie hole. Which is great. So it starts you off pretty easy, and I think the biggest asset other than the golf course at Doonbeg is the lodging options. A lot of our groups will come to us, and they're maybe this is their first time across the pond for a trip, and they say, hey, we're a group of 8 or a group of 4, and we really want some kind of self-catering lodge, or just something where we can be a little bit more communal. And to be honest, it's not as common across the pond as it is here. So if you're used to Bandon Dunes and Kohler, I mean, you're going to have some of those offerings, which is nice because you can build camaraderie. But again, it's not as common across the pond. And the nice big benefit of Doonbeg is that is more common there, as they do have some of the options where they have a kitchen and a living room and just kind of a place to hang out after you're around a golf or when you're arriving or what have you. So there are some great options there. And they do have the amenities of like a hotel, of a spa, and 2 great dining options there too. So Doonbeg has a lot to offer. And I think, again, the biggest asset other than the golf course is definitely the lodging. And so anything to add there, DJ?
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's a great spot for, say, a group of 8 or a group of 4 or whatever that's traveling together. If you want to really enjoy the camaraderie and make the most of it together, one of those lodges is a fantastic option. And like you said, it's kind of a best of both worlds thing, because you've got living room and everything that comes with having, say, a self-catering type option, but yet you've also got the amenities of the lodge itself. And so it's a great combo. And it's funny you mentioned the 14th, because for as great as the 14th hole is now, the old par 3 14th was only like 100 yards, and it played to a green that was on this shelf on the side of a dune, practically falling into the ocean. And unfortunately, it eventually did fall into the ocean when a storm came through. So we now have this version, which is awesome. But the old little short par 3, if you pull up some old photos around Google, you'll see it was a one of a kind hole. But moving to Lahinch, and I'm sorry in advance if I kind of go on for a minute here, because look, Lahinch, it's probably my favorite golf course in Ireland, one of my favorite in the world. And I think that I'm not alone in that view. Top 50 in the world. I think it's number 36 right now from Golf Magazine, but basically every publication out there has them in the top 50. Club dates back to 1892. Old Tom Morris redesigned the first course that was there and took it more into the dunes. And then in the 1920s, the club invited Alistair McKenzie to come and further upgrade and redesign the links. I don't know of many courses that have that kind of pedigree behind it, but Dr. McKenzie, when he finished, said that, quote, Lahinch will make the finest and most popular golf course that I believe anyone else ever constructed. And those are some strong words from the guy that gave us Augusta National and Cypress Point. But when it comes to Lahinch, it is links golf at its finest. Two holes in particular always stand out. The fourth is known as Klondike. It's a pretty short par five. I think it's only like 475 or so, but the fairway kind of runs through a tunnel of dunes. So, even if you're a little offline on the drive, it does tend to kind of funnel back down. But really, it's all about the second shot here. There's a giant dune right smack in the middle of the fairway, and all that you have to guide the way is a little stone that they put on top of the rock, and that's your aim point. And you just hit it and hope for the best. And you don't find holes like this very often, but at Lahinch, you find it in back-to-back places because up ahead on the fifth, the Dell, as it's known, is about 150-yard par three. The green is settled into a group of like three or four dunes. Only about one little sliver of the green is visible, so it's basically entirely blind. And again, you just hit it up and over a stone, and run up ahead and see where it turned out. But just an outstanding links golf experience. The other thing that Lahinch is known for are its famous weathermen. And what I mean by weathermen are the goats that roam the course. If you've been to Lahinch, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, all you have to do is look at their logo to see what the goats mean to the course. The old saying goes that if you show up and the goats are near the clubhouse, you better pack your rain gear because it's going to rain. But if they are out on the links, you're probably in good shape. And from my experience and from everything I have heard through the years, those goats are more accurate than anyone else in the weather forecasting business. But Lahinch, for a very good reason, is at the top of pretty much everyone's list who comes to Southwest Ireland. And so it just so happens they are about to open their tee sheet for 2024. As we are recording this, and the episode will come out first week of June, the tee sheet has probably just opened. And if you are headed to the Southwest, now is the time.
For sure. I also love Lahinch, and it's one of my favorite golf courses is over across the pond, and even just in Ireland in general. But yeah, the Klondike and Dell holes are great. Quick story too. Klondike were playing it, and the goats were out, so it was also a great day. So to your point there, that is very true. So they were spread out amongst the golf course, but hit my tee shot on Klondike par five, straight middle of the fairway. It's great tee ball, and we played in the afternoon. It was like 3 o'clock or so. We teed off, and obviously didn't have any caddies, just myself and one of my colleagues that we're playing with, and hit it right at that stone, like you were saying, DJ. Once it goes over the stone and goes across the mounting there, you have no clue, and you're just gonna walk up and pray for the best. But going up, I'm checking around the hole. I'm like, I don't see anything, and someone emerges from the town of Lahinch behind and has my golf ball. And I guess I just must have smoked the hybrid. And I guess I didn't have the right yardage. And she came back, said, "Yeah, went another block down." I mean, I must have flushed it right over the green and onto the town. I mean, it was a block or so past. I mean, 50 or so yards past the hole. But yeah, it's a fun hole.
This is way more disappointing than I was expecting. I thought you were gonna say it was in the hole,
No,
and
no.
now you're telling me you hit it out of bounds. What a letdown.
Yeah, so technically I had to go walk back to my second shot originally, but no, I mean, I'm usually like that. I check the hole just to make sure,
Of
as
course.
anyone would, right?
Where else would it have been?
Yeah. But to your point, Lahinch is fantastic. And as DJ said, it's about to open up for 24. So if you haven't booked your trip yet for 2024, I would get on it if you definitely want Lahinch on that itinerary. So next up is Adare Manor, and as I've stated in the past, my past place of employment. So I was doing my last training to become a PJ professional there, and was there for about 6 or so months in the spring/summer of 2019. So very familiar with Adare, but Adare Manor was originally built in the early 1800s by the Earl of Dunraven. And then it was then purchased by J.P. McManus in 2015. Mr. McManus is a great gentleman, supports the Limerick and in the Southwest area very well and does a lot for charities amongst that area, specifically just Ireland in general. So he's a great owner of the facility. And essentially he came in and did a whole head to toe renovation to the whole clubhouse, the whole manor house, the golf course, and kind of the goal of that too was to then get the Ryder Cup, and that goal did become into fruition. Which before COVID, it was going to be launched in 2026 when the Ryder Cup was, but now it'll be played in 2027. And I mean, the place is spectacular. If you do some Google searches and see some photos, it's amazing. And I mean, another thing too, when they were doing the renovation to the golf course with Fazio, they actually put fiber optic cables underground when they were doing that renovation in prep of the Ryder Cup. So that was their main goal. I mean, it's spectacular, and it's a Parkland golf course, so it's not going to be like Lahinch or Doombag like we talked about. So it's going to be a course like you would find in the States. Again, you're not close to the ocean, but the conditions of the golf course are spectacular. In a lot of different publications, it's been noted as the quote unquote Augusta of Europe or Augusta of Ireland. And, it's pretty close to it. A lot of people will agree with that. The manor house there has unbelievable lodging options. There's two great restaurants on property as well. So there's a lot to do when it comes to that. The golf course is amazing. Maybe for golfers, maybe there's a group out there that's listening, and maybe you have some golfers that don't want to play all the golf, and this would be a place that I would say you probably should play, because it's not going to beat you up. It's the rough is cut down pretty thin, which is nice, and again, you're not going to have the ocean views as you have in some of the other courses in the Southwest, such as Old Head and Waterville and Lahinch, as we talked about, but it's Parkland. It's great. Another great golf course to play, again, either on arrival day or one of your first rounds, because it kind of eases you into the rest of your rounds that you'll have there. So they are closed on Mondays, just as some of the private clubs you'll find here in the States, but they are closed for golf on Mondays. So just something to note there, but they are open on the weekends, which is nice as well. And to note, I know some of our groups will contact us and say maybe they're not staying or at Adare, but they want to come in and see the manor house, because if you do some Google searching, it is quite beautiful. But without any type of reservation, you will actually not be let into the gate. So you do have to have something set up like afternoon tea or dinner in the carriage house, lunch, what have you, or golf or lodging, if you will. So just make sure you do have some type of reservation, because if you do show up there, if you're a self-drive expedition and you show up and just want to come in and check it out on an off day, unfortunately you'll be turned away. But that is kind of Adare Manor. It's spectacular, and again, because I've past coworker there, I do have to give it good praises. So
Yeah, the pressure was definitely on here. It's going to be a great Ryder Cup venue. When I think about it, I think of yeah, you would know it's 15 or 16. It's a short par four. The river runs up the entire length of the hole, and the house is on the other side of the river. Uh,
yeah, it's hole 15. You
yeah,
got it. Yeah, it's
great,
great.
great hole. I mean, any course that has a risk reward drivable par four, not that I could drive it, but is going to be a good thing in my book. But it's going to be a great venue. And like you said, there's not a blade of grass out of place anywhere at Adare Manor. And even though it's not a links course, I mean, because of the sand capping and the sub air systems and
Mm-hmm.
the bent grass that they use, it can very much play like a links course if they get it, where it's maybe a little drier or the wind kicks up. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll make a great venue. But, as Connor mentioned earlier, there is so much stuff off the golf course as well. And this being golf and the good life, of course, we need to spend some time on it. And in the northern section of Southwest Ireland, there may not be quite as much, but there are a handful of things that belong on your list. Of course, we talked about Doonbeg and we talked about Adare Manor from a lodging standpoint. Vaughan Lodge is another great choice right in the town of Lahinch, just a handful of miles away. The Cliffs of Moher, they're in every brochure that advertises Ireland ever printed, and for very good reason. I mean, they're absolutely stunning. One that I like to do is the Burren, and this is a national park that is kind of just north of the Cliffs of Moher. And the only way I really know to describe it is it's kind of like driving through the moon. It is a mountainous, rocky landscape that was kind of left behind by a glacier. And if you leave the town of Lahinch and kind of work in a counterclockwise circle, eventually you'll pass. There's a dolmen that dates to like 3000 BC or something. I mean, it's incredible. But you can wind through this landscape, and then eventually it works its way back to the coast, and the views out to the sea and with the Burren on one side and the sea on the other are just they're just absolutely incredible. But then if you've done this counterclockwise circle, you basically end up at the Cliffs of Moher. But Connor, you obviously have a lot more experience in this area than I do off the course. Tell us about some of your favorite spots.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, when it comes to around the Limerick and Adare area, the good life is there, but it's not as, I guess, plentiful, if you will, if that's a word, compared to like Killarney, which we're going to talk about in the next episode. And there will be a lot more talk about the good life offerings there, but there are some. And I would start off with Limerick, and that's going to be kind of your next town over from Adare. It's give it 20 to 30-minute drive. There are sometimes some traffic and construction around the area, but you're fairly close. The University of Limerick is in Limerick, so a lot of the local students that go to primary school in this area will then go to university at the University of Limerick or a few other schools, but that one is very popular. There's also the King John's Castle, which is a great touring option. So for example, if you're playing around a golf at Adare in the morning and you want to do something off property in the afternoon, that would be a good offering. And again, it's just about a 20 or 30-minute drive, again, pending traffic. Limerick also has some great pubs and restaurant offerings too. So your driver host or your H&B concierge can help with those offerings too. If you do want to get outside of the village of Adare, it's all walking distance. There's actually two gates. I think one is going to be east, and the other one is southeast of kind of, I guess, the premises of Adare. So you can walk through those gates and then walk actually into the town, which is nice. It's a bunch of different pubs, and it's going to be kind of your main thing in Adare. Outside of it, to be honest with you, there's Bill Chalk's pub, which I've talked about in past episodes, kind of the employee watering hole, if you will. So another spot would be Pat Collins, also one of my favorite pubs in the village of Adare. If you are there, please order the chicken burger. It is to die for. It's phenomenal. Get you a pint of Guinness as well to wash it down. It's great. And then at Pat Collins, sometimes, especially in the summers and fall, spring, what have you, but the decent weather days, they'll put some patio furniture out in front so you can eat outside if you want, or drink your Guinness outside too. And the last place is Antilina's. I've only been there once, but Matt Janella actually did a piece on Golf Channel. I can't remember. He's done multiple different ones, but I think it was specifically from Southwest Ireland, and it was at Adare and was playing the golf course, and then went into the town of Adare, and that's actually the pub he went to. So great food offerings as well. I would say it's probably one of the bigger pubs. It's going to have a lot more seating. So if you are a bigger party, I would suggest going there. Also great food. I mean, you can't go wrong with any of the food offerings of the pubs. It's all good, because if it's not good, to be honest, they're going to go out of business because everyone else is really good. So the pubs, again, it's about what you can do in the town of the village of Adare. So
Yeah, and one thing that I missed is if you are in town when a hurling match happens to be going on, let me tell you, I had never heard of hurling. I show up, I'm at Doonbeg, and the general manager says, there's a big hurling rivalry that's taking place this weekend, Clare versus Tipperary. Now, mind you, I don't have the first idea what hurling is. So I told him, you know what, I will make an effort to watch this match. I'm in Lahinch the next day. I went to the 19th pub. The place is absolutely packed. I mean, spilling out of the door to watch the sport that I have never heard of. And let me tell you, I was addicted within minutes. It is like taking baseball and lacrosse and rugby and American football and like mixing it all together. That's
Mhm.
the only way I know to describe it. I'm still not entirely sure I know the rules, but what I do know is it is arguably the most exciting sport that I have ever watched. And it's a big deal in this corner of Ireland. And the players, from what I understand, they're all just regular Joes.
Mhm.
They might be a golf pro at Adare Manor, during the week, and they play hurling on the weekend, and it's just incredible. So if you happen across a hurling match, either in person or on TV, invest the time. You will not regret it. But we have kind of checked all the boxes on this episode. I think. Anything that you wanted to add before we go?
I would agree. It's just going to get better from here. So Southwest is great. A lot of great offerings. If a group wants to take a day off or say, "Hey, what's kind of the weakest course in this area?" There really isn't any. It's all really good, and I think that has a lot to do with why it's so popular. And looking forward to the next one with you, DJ.
Absolutely. Well, we will be back again with part two of Southwest Ireland. But in the meantime, if you have any questions or anything, send them our way. You can email us golf@haversham.com or shoot us a DM on any social media channel. But as always, thank you for tuning in. We will be back with you again soon. But until then, we wish you plenty of golf at its finest and life at its best.